first is the legislative decision, which have widespread impact and include applications like zoning map amendments or rezones. The policy choices that are made during a rezone essentially affect all citizens. Legislative decisions made by the hearing examiner are in the form of recommendation, which is then forwarded to the City Council for approval or denial. The second type of decision is a quasi-judicial, which is localized in their application, affecting an individual or particular group of citizens rather than the public at large. Quasi-judicial decisions are made on applications like variances, special use permits, preliminary plat time extensions after the first request, and planned unit development request when said planned unit development requests are not part of a preliminary plat. Quasi-judicial decisions made by a hearing examiner are in the form of an approval or denial, with the exception of planned unit development requests that are part of a preliminary plat request. In that instance, decisions made by the hearing examiner are in the form of a recommendation, which is then forwarded to the City Council for approval or denial. Public oral testimony will be taken from those in attendance who have signed the sign-up sheet to speak, which is available at the front of the room. When testifying, you must come to the podium, speak into the microphone, and state your full name and address. All comments should be addressed to the hearing examiner and should be relevant to the application. Hearing examiner decisions are based solely on the testimony and evidence presented at the hearing and the application of criteria specified in city codes and state law. Any decisions or any conditions of approval may be appealed to the City Council in accordance with Caldwell City Code and Idaho statutes. All meetings are recorded in an MP3 format and made part of the official record of the hearing. The hearing will proceed in the following order. 1, presentation by the city's professional staff to describe the application request, summarize the review analysis and findings, and give the city's recommendation. 2, presentation by the applicant or the applicant's authorized representative with a maximum time limit of 10 minutes. 3, public testimony is taken from those in support, those in a neutral position, followed by those in opposition. Each will be given time limit of up to 3 minutes. The applicant or applicant's representative will then be permitted up to 5 minutes for rebuttal. After the rebuttal testimony is given, the public hearing portion of the meeting is closed, and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed unless there is a vote by the governing board or commission to reopen testimony. We request that everyone treat all parties with fairness and respect. Unruly behavior is prohibited. Idaho's statutes require the taking of written minutes of all its meetings. Therefore, we ask that all cell phones be turned off and silenced at this time and throughout the duration of the meeting. We thank you for your courtesy. With that, we'll proceed to today's agenda. The first item on the consent calendar is approval of the September 13th, 2022 hearing examiner meeting minutes, which are hereby approved with no amendment. On to the new business. Item 1, action item was withdrawn. That's PUD 22 5 zeros and a 3. Kristen McNeil and Gibbons Pursley has withdrawn their application. If you're here to participate in that hearing, they're off the books. And the next item, the remaining item on the agenda is case number SUP 22 000015. And with that, I'd like the staff to make their presentation, please.
Julie McCoy, Senior Planner for City of Caldwell Planning and Zoning, 621 Cleveland Boulevard in Caldwell. And I come before you today for SUP 22000015, the Star Point on Logan Apartments. Can you hit the arrows for me? That helps a lot. Okay, are we good? There we go. Okay, so this request is for 8 two-story eightplex buildings on approximately 4 acres of land that is located on Logan Street to the north of Farmway Road. The parcel number is noted there, located at 0 Logan Street. It's located within the Caldwell city limits. The property is zoned R3, which is high-density residential, and the future land use designation for this parcel is also high-density residential. The purpose of a special use permit per city code is for uses that require granting of special use that possess characteristics that require review and appraisal to determine whether or not the use would cause damage, hazards, or nuisance or other detriment to persons and properties in the vicinity. And they are granted if the proposed use is conditionally permitted by the terms of the ordinance. And that we'll see the terms a little bit later. The surrounding uses of this property, the subject property is outlined in red there. As you can see, it is currently zoned R3. Future land use designation is high density residential. Within the immediate vicinity is surrounded by medium density, low and high density, and most of the land is currently in residential use, both for high density residential and single family residential around it, with the exception of the property to the west, which is agricultural production still. The proposed site plan and elevations, they do meet the required setbacks and height requirements that are in our comprehensive plan and city code. The project is in alignment with 7 of the goals and 9 of the policies of the 2040 comprehensive plan, and there's a notation of what the high density residential is intended to be from our comprehensive plan. We have the essential services and traffic. There is water and sewer access located adjacent to the parcel, and a fire hydrant right on the property line. As far as the traffic goes, it does not exceed the number or have the number of doors that would require a traffic impact study, and the impacts from the traffic should probably be mitigated by the frontage improvements that are going to be required by the engineering department. We did publish in the newspaper notice on or before September 11th. The public agency and 300-foot notice was on or before August 23rd, and the site was noticed on or before September 21st. We received 1 public comment that was included in the packet from the Logan Crest HOA, and it's Exhibit SP8 in the staff report. And then these are the conditions of approval for the special use permit. And I would also like to note that we have a late exhibit that was included that is the application materials provided by the applicant for this project and the property owner acknowledgement for the property. Which, do you have that, or do I need to hand that to you?
I'll take that. Thank you. Just call this Exhibit A1.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that concludes my presentation, and I now stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. McCoy. I do have a number of questions. First, the little housekeeping item in the staff report. It discusses the number of units. The total number of units is proposed at 64, and the number of 2-bedroom units proposed is 44, and that also appears on page 8 of the staff report. Also, I did notice that the page 2 of the staff report, the table that shows the surrounding uses, this was corrected in your presentation, but to the north there is a low-density residential comprehensive plan map designation. And then going to Mitch, we have 4 maps that were submitted that show the subject parcel, the vicinity, comprehensive plan, and the zoning that will be exhibit let's see, I don't know where we're up to. We'll call it Exhibit 12A. So the questions I have, this is maybe for Mr. McDonald, but I'm just going to go through here page by page. Mr. McDonald, the parcel doesn't connect to the surrounding sites, and there's a lot of vacant land, undeveloped agricultural land around there. Do you see a need to make connections from this, even though there are no public streets or rights of way? Is that a consideration here?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, I'm just trying to pull up the site plan here. There's no concern. So the site is somewhat secluded simply because there is a large irrigation drain facility on the north, and so there's no reason to connect anything to the north. I think on the west side, there's no reason to make a connection because the driveway is more or less appears to be maybe a shared drive or at least a driveway that may be used by both properties. So the only question, I guess, would be on the east side. And then on the east side, a connection does not make sense in my opinion, simply because the entire lot that's developed on the east side is private. All the drives are private, and so having that cross connect into a privately owned facility and driveway system is not always desirable from other establishments. And so I would recommend at this point that the only access point that is needed is an access out to Logan for the residents in this development.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. This is one of the exhibits that's showing the driveway, so-called, or the access on the east side of the adjoining parcel would be adjacent to the proposed access for this development. Do you see that as having two points of access lining up side by side? Is that the reality there, or a potential for that access to Logan?
Yeah, a lot of it depends, Mr. Hearing Examiner, a lot of it depends on if and when that site to the west develops and what their proposal is. The site to the west can take access at a different location on Marshall Avenue, potentially. In the past, with discussions we've had, we have wanted them or asked them to take access directly to Logan so that it's not creating an increase of traffic on Marshall Avenue with those residents there. And so what you may end up with is potentially it could end up being some kind of a shared access point at Logan Street, right along that property line that both developments would have to use to take access to Logan.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. So are we proposing a shared access at this point, or can it be designed to serve in the future as a shared access? What's your thinking on that?
At this point, it is not proposed to make that a shared access point, but I think it could be set up and pretty easily established that it could operate as a shared access potentially. And I haven't talked to the applicant about this, but it wouldn't be hard to set it up so that it could be a shared access at some point in the future if that other west side ended up developing and they needed access.
Would there be a need for, let's say, prohibiting a protection strip along that western boundary to prevent such a shared access? Is that necessary, or can we just assume that it's the right thing to be done at the right time?
Good question. I believe at the site plan I'm looking at now, it appears that their driveway is immediately adjacent to the property line without any kind of buffer or any other type of separation. And so that may work, as it's laid out now, that may work just fine. The only thing that would have to be taken into consideration is if any kind of cross-access agreement for that little access point there has to be established now for some potential future use. Aside from that, I think the logistics are relatively straightforward. And nothing would be triggered until that west development developed, and if they were gonna take access at this location, then something would have to be orchestrated.
I think, Ms. Donald, so there's still kind of, just for clarity, you suggest that with this application, we institute a cross-access agreement with the property to the west, or wait till they develop?
That would be my recommendation. Like I said, I have not spoken with the applicant about this, and so maybe I would be interested to hear what the applicant feels about that.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. One second. Okay, the property, Mr. McDowell, is for you to house in the north end is basically a drainage basin, detention basin, I guess. Is that the case, and is that suitable for recreational activities? What's the city's policy on that as a potential amenity?
So I can let the planning and zoning department weigh in on the amenity of a retention basin, but the retention basin is typically located geographically on the lower part of the site so that it can collect the stormwater. In this case, the retention basin would not be permitted to be located within the easement of the drain that is behind the site unless they had received approval from I believe, the Bureau of Reclamation on this drain. But aside from that, it is very common to have a retention basin. Whether it's used as allowable space or any of that sort of thing, I would defer that question to planning and zoning to respond.
Thank you, Ms. McDowell. Ms. McCoy, I have a number of questions here. I'll just go down as they popped up in the report. And we'll ask this, does the applicant provide a maintenance plan or a homeowners association or some way to have long-term maintenance of this development?
They have not provided that. Could you hear me? Is it still on? Okay. No, they've not provided that.
Okay, is that something you recommend? I mean, typically, in the case of PUDs, for example, we require a HOA. Would you recommend something? It doesn't necessarily have to be an HOA, but it has to be some recorded plan going in.
Maintenance contract, yes, yeah.
Okay, I'll add that. The next item, just verify that the proposed 119 parking stalls meet the code.
Yes, those are adequate. The requirement is 1.5 spaces per unit. And according to the units, I did the math of what's in the application, and they should have 92.
96.
So, yeah, they're going to have plenty.
Okay, and they indicated a range of up to 128 in their application. I just wondered, I guess it depends on the number of units, bedrooms, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Is that creates that range of 96 to 128?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I could not read the amount of open space cited on the landscape plan. Try as I may. So what is the amount of open space minus the detention pond?
I honestly am not sure about that. The applicant could probably answer that.
Okay, thank you. Which leads us into amenities. What is the discussion with the applicant as far as amenities? Have you had that discussion, or is there?
There has not been. However, the applicant did email me just prior to this hearing and said that he had an updated site plan to present that will include information about amenities in it.
Okay, we'll have the discussion. In the context of a special use permit, we do have discretion to request those kinds of things. I'm thinking specifically something like a tot lot, a playground of some type, because I haven't run the numbers, but we could expect at build out something on the order of 100 children in this development, give or take. But there should be something for the children to occupy their time. Leading to the school bus stop, have you had a discussion with the school district or the developer on providing a school bus stop for this development?
I have not.
And would you suspect or conjecture that the school district would want an on-site school bus pickup area, or would they prefer a street side?
I would imagine that it will be street side, so that would be something that would need to be considered as part of the frontage improvements.
Yeah, I think this is fairly crucial, some kind of accommodation for a school bus stop where you have potentially dozens of children. The next issue is the overall look and feel, the design review aspects of what we have before us. Again, with the special use permit, we have discretion on essentially what the design is, what it looks like. What has been your discussion with the applicant about the architectural design, the colors, the landscaping?
We have not discussed it.
Okay, I would like to have that discussion. I noted that they proposed 2 EV charging stations, which
Yes.
I consider a plus.
That's correct, yes.
Is there any kind of standard in Caldwell ordinance about that?
Yes, there is. If it has over 25 to, I believe it's 100, which this one is probably below that, will be 2. If they do go over 100 parking spaces, then they will need to have 3.
And so they proposed 2. You think 3 is the regulated number?
It would depend because they need a minimum of 96 parking spaces to meet the needs, the code for the number of units that they have. So if they stay there, the 2 EV parking spaces indicated are adequate, but if they go over 100, they will need an additional EV parking space.
Okay, note that. And noting the letter included in the application from Connie Blele, the Secretary for Logan Crest Subdivision. The concerns are mainly about traffic impacts, congestion, access onto Logan. And we all share those concerns. This might be a Mr. McDonald's question, but do you know the gross ADT for a proposal of this nature? Or average daily trips, vehicle trips?
I can get a general idea, just. Typically for high density or for apartments like this, the average trip per day per unit is about 6 trips, and that includes coming and going.
About 375.
There are 48 units.
No, there's 64.
64?
Yeah.
So if you have 64 units, then you're looking at a trip generation of about somewhere in the ballpark of maybe 380 trips per day.
Okay.
Then your PM, your AM and PM peak is going to be it's going to be I don't know what it'll probably be in the 40 or 50 trips range. It could be less than that. I'm just speculating here, so I don't want to speak out of turn. I did not look it up, and as was mentioned in the staff report, this development is significantly lower than what would trigger a traffic impact study. And so in that case, we don't do any kind of thorough analysis on the traffic. And so the project is allowed to move forward without a traffic impact study. But we could certainly put an estimate on what the total trip generation and the PM peak hour generation would be.
Yeah, 380 sounds reasonable, total or daily. Switching gears a bit, let's go back to the bus stop accommodation for school bus. What would it look like to have, say, a pull-out on Logan some distance from the ingress-egress point for the bus stop?
What that would look like is it would just be the typical road section for Logan, and then there would be it would look similar to what we would have as like a deceleration lane, probably, where you have a pull out that adds another 12 feet to a travel lane, and then it would have to be back far enough from the access point to make sure it's not blocking any visibility when there's a bus stop there. But that's generally what it would look like. I don't know. Looking at this, I don't know exactly what the length of their frontage is, and so I don't know how tight that would be to try to fit something in of that nature in front of this site.
Okay, it looks like they have a reasonable setback on from Logan Street. I'll have a discussion with the applicant, but in your opinion, what's this facility to the east? Is that the retirement home, or what? Is that an apartment, or would there be children in the neighborhood that might also benefit from such a site?
I believe those are apartments.
Okay, in the east side.
On the east side, I'm living. Okay, it's assisted living, so
Okay.
So you're not going to have students there. And
Right.
And just to go back real quick to school buses and bus stops, traditionally they just stop right on the road, and that, I think, adds maybe some kind of sense of security that the traffic is stopping. If they're pulled off the side of the road stopping, I don't know how that impacts traffic passing by. And so, again, I'm just speculating, but a pull-out bus stop may not be something that the bus company would prefer, because then it's harder for students to cross the road because the bus is further off the road. Whereas having the bus stop in the road, it assures that traffic is going to be stopping. So that's just my opinion, and for whatever it's worth.
Well, maybe this is for Ms. McCoy, but some kind of shelter then out of the right of way, just a typical bus stop shelter, we're all familiar with. Would that be, you think, advisable for something like this to accommodate the children?
I really can't speak to that, as that would be more the purview of the busing company, and they were notified, but have provided no comments.
Okay, thank you very much. So I looked at the floor plans. I like what they've done with, get a right side up here. The units that have the single bedroom, the two bedrooms and a 3-bedroom. The reason that I find that a good design is to provide affordable housing. Ms. McCoy, in your estimation, is that affordable housing, and is that something that could be pursued further?
That was not indicated in the application or the narrative that it was to be affordable housing. I think they're planning them to be market rate apartments.
Thank you very much. I think that concludes my question for staff. Let me review my notes again here. Okay, it does. Thank you very much, Ms. McCoy. Mr. McDonald, with that, I'd like the applicant to make their presentation, please.
Good afternoon. William Juarez, EV Studio, 725 East 2nd Street, Meridian, Idaho. Presenting this proposal for a multifamily project.
See, 1 second. Can you get a little closer to the mic,
A
please?
little closer, does this work? Okay. So with this proposal, I'm going to go ahead and probably answer some of the questions that you guys have already stated. First question that you guys mentioned with the access drive as a shared access for the site. My client and I have already been in talks with adjacent property as providing that as a shared access, given the small amount of site frontage they have towards Logan Street. So that is the reason why we are up to the property line. And so we, if it is a condition, I mean, we are proactively looking at that as a design for our site. For the open space, total without the buildings, we're looking at 3.143 acres. Some of that is parking, 3.143.
Okay. Thank you.
And also in regards to amenities, we are providing on the site plan to the north, between one of the buildings and kind of the swale in the back, pergola and playground for the children there. So that is where we're locating it. Also, the thought on that is to push it away from the street and make it safer for the children within this development. And also we will be looking at maybe providing a shelter for that bus stop. We're open to having discussions with the school board and the bus service as what that may be, and how to kind of keep it more of a safe space for everyone there.
And are you finished?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Yeah, Ms. McCoy indicated that you had additional materials. Could we discuss those?
I do. I don't have a clean one, if that's all right.
That's fine. Well, it'll be part of the record, so whatever, you know, we're looking for the final design here.
Can
But if it's marked up, that's great, as long as it shows what is being requested.
Okay. Can I present that to you now?
Please, yes. Thank you. The applicant gave me the sheet A100, their site plan that's designated item A12 in the staff report. We will call this the new exhibit A12. I'll have to change my exhibit number here to the maps is 13A. James, or I'm sorry, Stuart Wars, the map you show that the changes are, you're showing a recreational site north in the northwest corner, and that's the addition, the change on this particular map?
That is correct, as well as a pergola next to that.
Okay. And is there a tot lot concept here, or providing a play structure, or something of that nature?
Not at this moment.
Okay, and I just threw out a number that, bound to be somewhere between 50 and 120 children at the build out at the peak of this. Just giving it a rough estimate, is that in line with the kind of numbers that you're thinking about?
Yes.
Okay, and so I think it's really important to accommodate those children on site to keep them from wandering around the neighborhood, even though that won't won't do the trick if they keep my own past. But I would like to look at a tot lock kind of amenity. With that number of children there, they've got to have something to do, place to go, things to do. And let me ask you about, is this proposed to be a walkway around the perimeter of the site? Or is that backyard space?
It's just a backyard space or setback from the property line. So nothing as far as the path or a walkway yet.
Okay, so that is any of that going to be fenced on the property lines? Will it be fenced to the property lines?
Yes, they will be fenced.
But, well, I guess fences between the houses, not the perimeter or including the perimeter.
No, the fencing would be around the property and not necessarily the houses or the units themselves.
Okay. And we had the discussion about the required parking around 96 stalls. You're providing 119, which I guess if you take the optimistic viewpoint that allows you to add another EV parking stall, 3 is the number when you exceed 100 parking stalls. I think that's a valuable amenity. Would you consider making that 3 instead of the 2 proposed?
I would like to look at it again. I believe that I'm showing 2 because it's 2 after 100. I could be mistaken, but if 3 is needed, we can look into adding a 3rd EV stall. But I believe right now the count is accurate to what the code states.
Well, you propose 119 units, and it goes to 3 after 100. The previous discussion we just had there. I think that would be, well, I look at it, the more amenities you provide in a development, the more desirable it is. It was a purpose to longevity and tenant stay, these kind of, more congenial environment. And, the build it and they will come, that kind of idea, to attract long-term tenants, which I'm sure is your goal. Now, to the question of maintenance, what is your proposal for long-term maintenance organization or business, or how do you want to address that?
We'll probably have a management company that'll take care of the maintenance and management of the site. Since this is private, we wouldn't have an HOA at this location.
Yeah, this isn't a particularly good fit for an HOA, but I would like some assurances for the long-term maintenance. I know it's fully in your interest to make that happen, but we also don't want to see that fall, short and not have a mechanism to make sure the maintenance is done. That's my concern there. Okay, that leads us to the design. I'm looking at, well, the thing that's up on the screen there, that elevation in the upper right-hand corner, is that the sum total of your exterior design ideas?
Yes, that is correct.
And would each of the 8 structures look just like that?
For the majority, yes, since there is one that's 3 units that are the 2 bedrooms. They're slightly different, but the overall characteristic is still the same with the lap siding and vertical siding and board and bat, as well as the stone on the bottom.
Could you describe the color scheme, please?
We have a white lap siding, cement board siding. Then there's a bit of a darker gray vertical siding, and then there's more of a navy blue board and bat. So we have a combination of the three. The stone would probably be more of a light gray stone to complement those colors.
Well, let me put it this way, it's kind of basic, and you know, we're trying to build a community here. You know, I'm not overly fond of the idea of having them all identical. There's a planning term is ticky-tacky houses all in a row, and where you just have more of the same. Have you given thought to changing the color scheme in each building, or evolving that around the site?
Yes, that can be accommodated. We can kind of create more of a bigger color palette that will complement the whole site.
Yeah, again, I think that distinguishes the development and makes it more livable, more interesting. Also, just to note, the elements all seem to be in the vertical orientation. There's very little in the horizontal to kind of draw your eye to those elements in the design. Perhaps there's something you could do there. You know, I don't need to design your project. I'm just looking for a more interesting exterior look, because that's the part of this application that we regulate, is what the public is going to see and what it contributes to the community. I'd like to see a little bit more there. I'm assuming the color scheme, the white, the gray, the navy, is the same front and back.
That is correct.
Okay, that would have been helpful as one of your exhibits. And again, looking at the landscaping, it probably meets the minimal standard. With the special use permit, we're granting extra density in return for a higher standard. That's basically the purpose of this type of application and this type of review. Again, not to belabor the point, but the nicer you make it, the better project is going to be. I know that digs into your pocketbook, but you know, I think that there's a cost benefit realization there. So there's a little bit of a confusion on the number of units. My count is that the proposal is for 44 two-bedroom units, 10 one-bedroom, and let's see, 10 three-bedroom. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
For 64 total?
Yes.
Okay. And do you propose to change that? Ms. McCoy intimated you might want to change those numbers, or not?
No, we're pretty set on those number of units for that site.
Okay. So let's have a discussion vis-a-vis affordable housing. That's an important component of our comprehensive plan. I like the one-bedroom units that you proposed. I think that's a really good mix in there. Have you, but you know, your marketing analysis shows that you're where you want to be on the one-bedroom, two-bedroom, three-bedroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it would, at least let me just say, I ask you to consider having the one-bedroom, three-bedroom, two-bedroom floor plan in all of the units. Would that destroy your pro forma?
I don't want to speak out of turn. I probably have to consult the client on this, but our idea with the current mixture of units is to kind of attract maybe more of a younger crowd that's doesn't have a full family that needs the 3 bedrooms, or maybe someone that's just starting off with a 1 bedroom. I feel that adding more 3 bedrooms, then we're adding just more people to the site, which increases the density, which adds to the concern of traffic that a lot of us have here. So that's kind of our idea of pushing forward to kind of creating more of a 2 bedroom, increase in the units, and still providing some 1 bedroom and 3 bedrooms.
Yeah, as you know, that wouldn't decrease the number of units. Um, and I don't think it actually decreases the number of bedrooms, it just redistributes them. Um, the housing market we have today, I'm sure you're far more knowledgeable about that than I am, but we're struggling for affordable housing. I even consider essentially the entire project to be more in the towards affordable end of the spectrum versus paying $500,000 for a single family detached home.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing that an advantage of that with that kind of diversity of units to be an advantage to what you're doing, because there be a lot of people looking for 3 bedroom units as well, and I'm just saying that's a really nice mix that you came up with, and it might behoove you to consider that for additional units, perhaps 1 or 2 of the other 3. But I just want to have the discussion with you.
Yeah, we're definitely open to looking at that. Maybe we can reevaluate kind of what our numbers are showing as far as units.
The process that we're in right now, I have the choice of approving, denial, or continuing. But should there be an approval or denial for that matter, it's based on what's in front of us. And changes of that nature would probably require continuing to another date, probably 30 days for that. We sometimes can make conditions such that the staff approves this addenda to the plan and make a decision now, trusting the staff's judgment in that. So those are the kinds of parameters that would apply to changes of that nature. We have a number of items. I'm interested in moving this along, giving some direction here. But there are a number of outstanding issues. The bus stop thing, the cross-access agreement, tot lot, some of the design elements that are not before us now. And I don't want to unnecessarily hold this up, but we should also, if we go in those directions, looking for those kinds of things, it should be part of the discussion today. And so if you would consider those items, I'll give you a chance for rebuttal. We'll move on to the next testimony. I see that Ms. McCoy has a comment.
Oh, there we go. I actually was incorrect. I just looked it up in the code as far as the number of EV parking spaces. It's 1 under 100, and then once they pass 100, it's 2.
Okay.
I was incorrect on that. I wanted to correct that.
Thank you for clarifying that. And thank you, sir, for your testimony. You'll have a chance to rebuttal, and we can discuss some of the items that come up. And with that, I'd like to go to the next person signed up, Steve Schmidt. Mr. Schmidt?
not to speak.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sorry.
the actual applicant, but I would like to handle the rebuttal if I can, when that comes.
Okay,
up.
thank you. I'm sorry I didn't see that box checked. And the same with Taylor Schmidt. So we'll move on to Mark Subia in a neutral position. Would you please come up, state your name and address?
I'm Mark Subia, 1216 Blaine, Caldwell, and my mother lives right across the street, and it's a 5-bedroom, 3.5-bath, story-and-a-half house with dormers on like a 1.5-acre lot with a 2,400 square foot detached garage. And the beauty of the house is it feels like you're in the country when you're just, minutes from downtown. The road is real narrow, no sidewalk, no shoulder. There's quite a bit of pedestrian traffic on that road, and it's dangerous. Their proposed property sits at the bottom of a whoop where the traffic is going real fast and you don't have much time to see them coming. So I'm sure they'd have to have curb and gutter on their side, but the road really needs widened both sides. And the telephone poles would need moved back for that amount of traffic and pedestrian traffic. And I'm not opposed to this as long as it looks good and they do it right. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. The next person to sign up is, I'm sorry, the young lady who sent the letter in, Ms. Blele? Well, thank you. Appreciate your testimony.
Connie Bleeley, 1612
Oh.
Crest Avenue.
Thank you very much.
So we're not really opposed to, my main concern is the traffic. If you look between Kimball and Farmway, Logan runs diameter from that. They just, they're still in the process of building 3-story apartments that are probably going to accommodate around 800 units. The people haven't even got in there. Their main access is to Logan Street to take a right and go to Kimball. And it is so bogged up now just with the workers that 8 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 to probably 6 o'clock, it's so bogged up just with the workers, and the people haven't even moved in. So you put that amount of people there and that amount of people down where they're proposing, it's just a block apart. It is just going to be one big cluster. It already is with just the workers that have been working on the apartments. Plus the school bus stops. So the apartments they're doing border Kimball, Logan, and Sunset. So Sunset will have traffic coming to Logan from both sides because we have subsidized housing on Sunset this side. Now they're going to have it on this side. 8 o'clock in the morning, everybody comes out to head to Kimball, to head to wherever they need to go. Plus you have the school buses that come off Kimball and they stop at Sunset. They go down to Marshall, and then they stop at Logan Crest to pick up the kids. And it already bogs up something fierce. And the people haven't even moved into the first set of those units. They're still working on them. So to propose that many units down a block away when we don't even know what the traffic flow is going to be like, I mean, people are going to be lucky to even get to work on time unless they leave extra early. But the kids, if you go when the buses come now, you will get in a big long line because there are so many little kids that come from Sunset where the subsidized apartments are already. They walk up there and that's where the bus comes to pick them up right on Logan. So it stops traffic. People get bogged up at the stop signs and stuff. So I, I don't oppose it. I don't see how they can widen it. And also, since town has got so jam-packed, the hospital lots of times will send their emergency units down Logan to Farmway to go back around to the freeway because it's faster than if they try to zigzag through town. So we've had an increase of emergency vehicles also. And yes, we have a lot of pedestrians. There's, towards Farmway, there's a couple of houses that house men with, learning disabilities that don't necessarily, work, but they walk down to Jackson's, or ride bikes. I used to ride a bike on that road. I won't anymore. It is just that bad. But I can't see putting more apartments in there till they see what the traffic flow is going to be on the ones that border Kimball, Logan, and Sunset, because there's 3-story units and they are massive. And I don't know if they've even allowed for enough parking from the looks of it, so I don't know if they're gonna start parking on Logan or what, but it, I think it needs a traffic study, I really do. And I think the hospital needs to be rolled into it, because that's a very busy street. I've lived there 22 years in Logan Crest, and so I know how it's changed, and I've lived here all my life. But it's just that little section between Kimball and Farmway is just picked up something fierce. So I pray they will do a traffic study on that, and I don't see as how they could widen that road very much. A lot of established properties on it, unless they forfeited their right-of-ways and stuff, I don't know. But
Thank you for your letter and your testimony.
Sorry?
Thank you for your letter and your testimony.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next we have Amanda Casper. Is that Cooper? Yes, please testify.
My name is Amanda Cooper, and my address is 806 West Logan Street. I'd like to read from a prepared statement, if that's all right.
Thank you.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, thank you for listening to us today. It is my hope that we can persuade you to not approve this apartment complex as it is presented here today. As you're aware, Caldwell has experienced significant growth and revitalization over the past several years thanks to its citizens investing in its well-being and putting in the time and effort to make it something special in the Treasure Valley. The apartment complex being put forth for consideration is nothing special. To us, it feels like a half-hearted attempt for a Nampa and Meridian business to make a quick buck through a poorly planned apartment complex in the middle of a quiet Caldwell neighborhood. I say poorly planned apartment because when the concept was presented to us a few months back, they didn't know who the target residents would be, but assumed that it would be younger families. If their target residents are young families, I ask you, where is the room for the children to play without worry of being hit by vehicles? Where is the safe pet area? The two front apartment buildings are towering over Logan Street, set only 20 feet back from the road, then 10 feet off of the property lines for the remaining buildings. I'll also point out that a hospital is down the street, and it's not uncommon for the ambulances to go speeding by along with along with other non-law abiding citizens who will drive 40 to 50 miles per hour. If younger families are the target residents, their young families need a place to safely play outside near their home. The back of this land, as discussed, plummets off into the retention basin, so the little amount of green space at the back of this property would not be sufficient. The plans for this apartment complex say that there are about 3 acres of open space, but this is not New York. Nobody moves to Idaho to live in a concrete jungle. Would you consider a parking lot sufficient for children to play in? Because I wouldn't. So though they presume that their target residents are young families, the main goal seems to be packing residents in like sardines without any type of home-feeling amenities. This half-hearted apartment complex is not one that's inviting to residents who will continue to invest in Caldwell as Caldwell deserves to be invested in after all of the heart that has been put into making this beautiful town what we enjoy today. My hope is that the plans will be redesigned to remove the two front apartments and in their place add more green space to be more inviting for good future neighbors in our quiet neighborhood. And as an addendum to my written statement, I'd also like to mention that if this is a special use case that is allowing the R3 zoning instead of single family housing, I'm completely against the apartment complex and would much prefer additional residential housing because that is what surrounds the neighborhood currently is residential housing that has been established, some of the houses since the 1920s. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cooper. I have, is it Connor Cooper? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Those are all who wish to speak. With that, allow the applicant 5 minutes in rebuttal.
Hi, Mr. Hearing Examiner. My name is Steve Schmidt at 1011 West Sonata, Nampa. And I just want to go through some of the rebuttal and some of the clarification. First of all, the density of this, apartment complex is far less than what would be allowed. They're only 2-story, and the reason we do that is we like to keep the product as an investment. We manage them. We have our own property management company, so we manage all of our properties, keep the lawns clean, keep it in good shape, or like you said earlier, we wouldn't have tenants. And so we do that by also keeping it 2-story, because if these were all 3-story, obviously there'd be a lot more issues, and we don't have any 3-story. We feel that we can be a couple $100 below the market on a 2-story like we are in some other areas, in Meridian, et cetera. And that kind of lends towards the affordable housing part of it. I mean, there's a big need for affordable housing in Caldwell. And when we bought this land 4 years ago, it was zoned properly for apartments, and at some point, that's what we thought would go there. And the 2-story product is what we've built and what works for us. There will be a significant, and it's not in detail, and I apologize for that, but the tot lot gazebo, again, we have a similar product in Meridian. We know what the usage is for kids, and we will do that or exceed that if we think there's going to be more kids. Again, we're going to hold this product long-term, so we're going to take care of it. We're going to build it right. We're going to do it nice. The colors, we do have a different color palette, at least 2 or 3 for the 8 buildings, so it will be a little different. And I think Will met with the city in a roundtable, kind of a design review process. I kind of was under the impression there would be another whole process of design review, and we would get all that ironed out. But it's definitely planning to be 2 or 3 different, along the same lines, so they all match, but not just one color scheme through the whole thing. And we could certainly supply that to the city. We could sit down with them again and make sure that they're good with what we're talking about. As far as the mix, we don't have a lot of 3-bedroom and 1-bedroom product, and we know that there is a need for that. But I feel that the more 1 and 3-bedroom product we put in, is going to be less 2-bedroom product, which is really the majority of the market. And so that's why we've identified, and it has to be the 2, even numbers, because it's 2 per building, just 2 3s and 2 1s. And so if we did them all that way, I just feel wouldn't be enough 2-bedroom product. And so that's kind of why we settled on the 10, 10, 44. The bus stop, we'll gladly meet with the bus company, school district, to do some kind of a amenity bench, some kind of an area for the kids to congregate while they're waiting for the bus. I don't know that there's room to really pull off, and I agree with Mr. McDonald on, getting the bus off of there makes maybe more issues than not. Landscaping will be done professionally by a landscape architect, and it will look nice and conform. I don't know if you have any other issues. yeah, I mean, again, our intent is to hold this and for a long time and manage it well. I mean, I think you could look at any of our properties today, they're very well taken care of, and we have a good rapport with our tenants, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
I really wish not to continue it, just from the standpoint of, it just takes so long to get stuff done nowadays that we kind of need to keep moving. However, if we need to, we'd certainly, as you wish.
Thank you for your testimony. If you wouldn't mind, just waiting at the podium a bit, go through you addressed most of the questions I had, and this might be much for Ms. Coy, but I am concerned about the long-term maintenance. We don't regulate
Well, through
HOAs.
code enforcement, there would be issues if we were to violate or, have weeds or anything like that. We have our own property management company that manages other outside, so it's a real business that would manage it, take care of it, and make sure that the maintenance is taken care of, as well as the landscaping, and make sure it looks good, or like you said earlier, we wouldn't have tenants.
Right, I just, not sure that's even, something that the city would want to, address and enforce itself, that as long as, it's covered. The amenities, there seems to be I'll say the issue here, I received this revised plan, your A100, has the pergola and a little playground. It looks like there's...
We'll have the tot lot. The tot lot will be in the playground, as well as a, jungle gym or whatever the playground equipment is.
Yeah, look at this, is just penciled in here, but at the southern boundary of the property, fronting Logan, looks like there's some kind of, I don't know, maybe an area there that could provide a waiting area for children boarding school bus. I don't know if that's the intention here.
We certainly could, and that's why I said we'll meet with the school bus company and school district if need be, and figure out what makes sense. We'd have to be, back from the entrance a certain amount, and where they can kind of pull over. And if it's a couple benches or covered area for the kids, we'll do what they request and what they think makes sense.
Well, I think on site, if you were to look at that as, we know that's going to happen. There's going to be children waiting for the bus, and so if there was some kind of accommodation, thinking of like you could pave and put like hopscotch things on there, or something that would provide that, a dry surface.
Sure. Yeah, anything
a pathway through there for them to access it from the site, not in the right of way or near the right of way, but.
Yeah, it's in the setback, so we certainly would work with the city on the, per request to make sure we could do something or do whatever we needed to do.
Yeah, I think that would, serve two purposes, or a recreational spot for the children, and a place to wait for the bus and drop off. And as long as you'd have to have, some kind of pathway into that front and center portion of the property. I think that might solve the problem, irrespective of the street design, and what the school would want to do. You're still going to make a provision.
Because I'm sure there'll be a sidewalk in the front of the property as well, that they can access through the drive and then come to the sidewalk and then go to their area that they're going to wait.
Well, I'd like to address that to Mr. McDonald. Mr. McDonald, there will be curb gutter sidewalk and a planting strip in front of this.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, that is correct. They, as part of the development, they are obligated to improve the frontage of Logan along the frontage of this entire parcel, which would include curb gutter sidewalk and a landscape buffer that is that matches the classification of the road.
Mr. McDonald, back to the traffic issues. Is Logan slated for widening at any point, or what's the city's intention on Logan?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, that's a very good question. The intent for Logan is classified as a minor arterial, which means that it has a very specific road section that it will be built to ultimately. The city does not have funding to go rebuild and widen roads, and so usually that is it is the responsibility of development as they come in to make those improvements as development comes in, and then theoretically, when all development's done, you should have a road that's completely built through to provide the access, and that road is designated and designed so that it can handle that development when that whole area is built out. In this case, they are obligated to build their frontage, but there are many portions of Logan that are not widened, and it's just a two-lane, I mean, it's basically an old farm road, a two-lane farm road that has a lot of room for improvement in the future. And so the only way the city can initiate a project on its own is if there are significant traffic needs or safety concerns along a certain stretch of road. Then the city is able to prioritize and try to allocate funding to make improvements. But where that's not possible, then it is on the backs of the developers to widen road sections as they build.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Just one further question about the proximity to the hospital. Is that the kind of safety concern that might, say, raise the priority for improvements on Logan?
I don't know that I can answer that. I know that the hospital is close by. I don't know what specific impact the hospital being where it's at has on this location right here where this development's going in. That would be something that we would have to analyze further. But to answer your question, if there was a significant conflict there because of the hospital and the road, the way the road exists, then that would be something that we would certainly take into consideration when we prioritize road projects.
Thank you, Ms. McDowell. Well, that satisfies my questions, both for you, Mr. Schmidt, and the staff. I do have a question for Ms. McCoy. The process, the applicant indicated that there would be a design review process, presuming that this is approved.
We don't typically do design review for this location. We have those for the city center and the central business district, but not in this area.
Correct. I guess my understanding is it's just for the downtown planning area.
That's correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
It's not something we would require for this. They are welcome to get our input, but we don't require a design review for this area.
Okay. So that brings us back to this is the last stop, barring an appeal to City Council, and the ideas, Mr. Coy, that we talked about vis-a-vis the tot lot, the waiting area for the school bus, the cross-access agreement, those kinds of things, some of the design issues. Are you confident that should an approval be given, that the staff can work with those issues with the applicant and fulfill the concerns that we have expressed in this meeting?
Yes, I am.
And it goes without saying, without having to continue the hearing?
Yes. Yeah, I'm confident we could work with them.
Thank you, Ms. Coy. With that, I would like to move to the analysis portion of the hearing. I will close the public hearing. Just a note, I appreciate the testimony from the public here. The context of the site is that it is allowable for high density, both as the underlying comprehensive plan land use map designation and the R3 zoning. This type of development is allowed in the R3 zoning and supported by the comprehensive plan. So the applicant is not asking necessarily for a land use exemption. It's part and parcel of the R3 zoning and is allowable. So the nature of this hearing is more how that is going to look, what the impacts are on the community, how can those impacts be addressed. The land use itself is not in question, and because it is allowed in the R3 zone. You've all suffered through my questions. I think it is a viable land use in this location. I do think it can be improved with addressing the issues that we have discussed here. And I will take up those issues in the order of decision. So one thing I would like to note, the engineering request that this proposal is processed the same as a subdivision. It is in their conditions, recommended conditions of approval. I won't call that out as a separate condition, but just to note that because of the complexity of the project, that it will be processed as a subdivision, but not actually subdividing the property. It remains as one parcel, but the standards of subdivision development will apply. The process and address that. The general facts of the proceedings have been fulfilled in accordance with Caldwell City Code and state statute, and is properly before the hearing body. The application is complete, and the hearing examiner accepts the comprehensive plan components that are listed under Section 5 of the staff report. Following that, the order of the decision, based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law, the Caldwell hearing examiner hereby orders that special use permit SUP 22-000015, a request by William Juarez to construct 8 two-story 8-plex apartment buildings that will include a total of 10 one-bedroom units, 44 two-bedroom units, and 10 three-bedroom units. The subject property is located at 0 Logan Street, parcel R057320110A0 in Caldwell, Idaho, is approved with the following conditions of approval. In Section 8 of the staff report on my numbered page 8, there are conditions of approval listed 8.2 through 8.10. I will make amendments to that, additions to that. First of all, looking at condition of approval 8.7, I will add, it says comply with all requirements of the engineering department as shown in Exhibit PA-1, adding dated September 19th, 2022. I'm having trouble reading the site plan, but the project shall be, item 8.9, shall be in significant compliance with the elevation provided in Exhibit A12. And I'd like to add the date of that, as today, submitted, on today's date in the hearing as A12, and showing amenities in addition to what was there before. Okay, that's 8.9. Just to be specific, I'm adding 8.11. The total allowed dwelling units shall be 64. And just reflecting the plan, I'm adding 8.12, 8.12. The project will include 2 EV charging stations. Adding 8.13, the applicant will seek a cross-access agreement with the property owner to the west, the adjacent property owner, that would allow in the future a joint ingress egress for both properties. Adding condition 8.14. The project will include amenities, some of which are shown on Exhibit A12. And in addition, a tot lot and accommodations at the southern boundary on joining Logan for a grouping children to board the school bus. And with that, I conclude this. Ms. McCoy, did we hit everything? I'll conclude this case and adjourn the hearing. And I thank you all for your participation, and good luck. Yeah, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Did those conditions come true?
Yeah, we'll have to listen on the recording for a couple of them, but yeah.
I'm afraid they're not recorded, that's all sort of spontaneous.
Yeah.
I could handle that right now, but
Yeah.
anyway.